post-war saga in which we have escaped the war on a submarine, Law's submarine, and Luffy is in despair. What an emotional ride. I guess I'll give final thoughts later. I think that this was a really interesting, surprising, and great way to wrap up this saga. I have some complaints or things that I'm kind of iffy and nervous about how they're going to play out, but for the most part, I enjoyed this so much. So this arc starts off with us seeing how the world is reacting to the war that just happened. And basically it's reacting in chaos. The pirates all around the world now know and understand that the One Piece is real. And Whitebeard, the Whitebeard era is over, and with Whitebeard's death, we kind of have this power vacuum in the world where people are trying to rise up, fill that position, get the One Piece, and the Marines and the world government are trying to figure out how to spin this whole thing to make them come out looking the best they can. Why did Roger and then Whitebeard want the world to know that Roger on his execution day, he declared that the One Piece was real, right? Didn't he? I'm pretty sure he did. He definitely started the era of the pirates with his closing statement. And Pops did the same thing as he's coming up to his death. He wants the world to know as the military's trying to cut the feed. Pops is like, the One Piece is real. And now the world is rising up to try to get it, which makes me sad because that makes my boys' chances to get to the One Piece far less likely. He's still gonna get it. But there's gonna be a lot more competition now. It's gonna add a lot of chaos, and the world just in general, I assume that Roger and Pops want the world to know about the One Piece because they want the world to rise up against the powers that be, the elders, the world government, the celestial dragons, the military, all these forces that are higher up that are all corrupt, and that a lot of them are, I don't know, maybe the military is not totally corrupt, but it is in bed with all these others that are corrupt, so I'm lumping them in there. It seems, my guess is that the reason Roger and Pops want the world to know about the One Piece is because they want the world to rise up against the world government and everything surrounding that, right? I don't know. Blackbeard 2 in Impel Down told Luffy flat out the One Piece is real. So everybody that knows about the One Piece seems to want to let people know, yeah, totally, this is something worth fighting for. And I know what it is, but I'm not going to tell you because I hate my readers. So they all end up, Boa finds her boy, and she offers them to dock at the island of women. So they all go there, and they're essentially discussing Luffy's fate. And again, I'm left with this feeling, which has all but been confirmed, that there is some sort of greater destiny around Luffy that everybody seems to know about more than I do. And they see on him something that makes them all gather around him and try to keep him alive. So you have all these powerful forces. You have Law, who, when we left Law back in Sabo, right? It was in Sabo. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I'm trying really hard to learn the name because I'm realizing that Sabo is going to play a much bigger role than I thought it would, so I can't keep calling it the Knot Island. Sabo, when we left Law there, the last thing he said to Luffy was, next time we see each other, we'll be enemies. And the next time they saw each other, Law saved his life. And I just love that. I really like Law's character a lot. But anyway, so Law's there. Law disrupted what he thought his position with Luffy would be so that he could rescue him, because I assume because he sees something on Luffy that he has to participate in. Iva, Boa, everybody, and Rayleigh shows up. Everybody is gathering around to do everything they can do to make sure that Luffy survives and thrives. Also, Mr. Bear is adorable. When they get to the Island of Women and all the fellows are like, oh, I wonder if I can catch a glimpse of a woman. And Bear is just like, you think there are some female bears? I love it. It's too cute. So we find out that Blackbeard had a little Hunger Games within the prisons when he freed even more prisoners, all the level 6 prisoners, not all. Yeah, all. I don't know. A lot of the level 6 prisoners. He told them, fight it out to the death, and whoever's left standing, come be a part of my team. Which, I understand, you want the best of the best, so cool, I guess, and you're also a brute, so what do you care? But also, if they're fighting to the death, don't you think that now all you've done is, sure, you've found the biggest, baddest fighters, but now they're all gonna be injured because they just fought to the death. It's fine. So he collects his prisoners, and now most of them are either dead or on his side, which certainly makes him an even greater threat than he already was. The sole person in this world that we know of that has 2 devil fruit powers, somehow. Plus, he has the old Warren of Impel Down on his side, plus some of the most notorious bad guys in the world on his side. I mean, the man's a force, and the stakes have been raised in this story a lot, so I'm scared. And of course, the government is just like, let's cover this up. Let's just pretend that didn't happen so that we don't look bad. Stupid freaking flamingo guy comes and kills stupid freaking Moria. I don't like Moria, so I'm actually fine with this. But flamingo guy says someone even higher up than Buddha told him to kill Moria. Who's that? Who's even higher up than Buddha? The comment section in my last video informed me that Buddha is the highest up of the military. So I assume the elders, is it the elders that told Flamingo to do this? And it's so interesting to me because back in Thriller Bark, Papa said to Moria that it's bad that he's been so badly injured because they can't let him die this early on because they just replaced Crocodile with him. Pretty sure it was with him. And so they can't lose him again because it's going to make them look bad if they keep losing their warlords. And then just not even that long, it's been like 2 years. No, it hasn't. Just for the readers. Not even that long later, they kill off Moria. Anyway, as I stated, the world is in chaos. Cut back to Luffy. Wakes up screaming for his brother. Ouch. Luffy kind of went into a catatonic state at the end of the last arc, and then we meet him up here where he's quite the opposite. He wakes up thinking it's a dream, hoping it's a dream, screaming, raging, just in pain. And man, did that hurt to read. Jinbe is there for him. Jinbe is the one that says, somebody's got to tell him the truth. Somebody's got to talk him through it. And it'll be me. So he goes and he does his best to help Luffy process the reality of the situation and let him get his feelings out. Enter flashback. So we have a flashback here. It's a Luffy flashback, and I don't know. I didn't expect it. I'm thrilled to have it because this whole saga was so intense, and truly a lot of my attachment to Ace is because of my attachment to Luffy. I mean, Ace's introduction was lovely. He is charming, and his loyalty to his brother from the bat makes me instantly like him. But it's Luffy's deep, deep love for his brother that made me so attached to Ace in the last arc. So the fact that we get to see their beginning a little bit more, I love that. I'm so thrilled to have that. I think that it's a great way to help readers kind of process what just happened, as well as we get to understand Luffy so much more through this flashback. So we start off with Garp dropping Luffy off, which I don't know. I didn't expect this. For some reason, up to this point, I have just assumed that Garp raised these boys, but he didn't. He dropped them off with some bandits to be raised by them, and he didn't really check in that often. So, Ace has already been dropped off a while ago, and he is broody, my sweet broody boy, I can't blame him. He's been through a lot, and then he just gets dropped off. He's bitter and upset with life and has very little self-worth. So then Luffy gets dropped off. Ace is instantly rude to him, and Luffy is instantly Luffy. I'm not mad at you for spitting at me anymore. Let's be friends. I love Luffy so much. Also, him getting dropped off by his granddad with these band of bandits, and the bandit leader lady, Dan, says to him, I'm gonna work you to your bone. You're gonna hate it here. And I will give you very little food, child who eats everything. You'll have to survive off the land otherwise. And he's like, cool. Granddad's already treated me terribly. I've already learned these skills. I'm gonna be a pirate. This is gonna be awesome. And just rushes off. I love Luffy. I love Luffy. So Luffy is desperately trying to be friends with Ace, even though Ace is very clearly not interested, and putting Ace in very dangerous situation, putting Luffy into very dangerous situations. But Luffy's like, we're gonna be friends whether you like it or not. Luffy eventually finds Ace and Sabo's hideout. I wonder if I'm saying that right. He finds their hideout where they're hiding treasures that they've stolen so that they can one day become pirates, and they don't want Luffy in on it. Luffy gets captured and does not snitch on them, which leads him to a terrible, terrible scene where Luffy is hung from the ceiling and beaten with spikes. I appreciate this flashback. I want to see more of Luffy's childhood. I want to see Luffy and Ace's beginning. But this flashback really did hurt me a lot. It really hurt my mom heart between seeing Luffy and Ace both in this really tough situation, seeing how hurt they are, seeing Luffy so desperately want to make a friend with his brother, but being rejected over and over again, his determination, his optimism, followed by this scene. I mean, this really hurt my mom heart bad. But Ace and Sabo do end up rushing in to save Luffy. The scene was such a relief to me. And then Ace, daggum you, faced off against the bandit guy, and we get this line, "You've got a real bad habit, Ace. How can you refuse to run away when you're up against a real pirate? Why do you have such a death wish?" Come on, Oda. I have not healed yet. That is a low blow. But we get a lot more perspective on why Ace is the way he is, and seeing that this decision that he made in the last arc was very consistent with his character. These panels also killed me. Well, these 2 pages, really. When Ace asks him, "Why are you so determined to be my friend?" And Luffy says, "Because I got nobody else. I don't want to be alone. I hate it more than being hurt." Oh, it hurts. It hurts. That alone hurts. But then it also sheds so much light into Luffy's character, and even recontextualizes Luffy gathering his crew and how he did it, and his determinedness in surrounding himself with friends. Man, we get a lot of light exposed onto a lot of Luffy's actions in this flashback. Followed by Ace saying, "Do you want me to be alive?" Okay, last arc we just learned that Ace didn't know if he wanted to live because he felt that his life was worthless and didn't have acceptance from anyone, and it was realizing that he was truly loved by his family that made him finally happy. And then we see this, I mean, we already got a flashback, a little bitty flashback of Ace in his childhood and how everybody devalued him and didn't want him alive. And now we actually see this in motion with him truly having accepted that on himself and being surprised at the idea that this kid wants him to be alive. That's not fair. I also love, just still in these 2 pages, when Ace challenges Luffy being strong, and he's like, if you're strong, then what are you crying for? And Luffy just shouts, do you ever get punched with spikes? I appreciate that. I appreciate Luffy so much. Anyway, from this moment on, our boys are now a family. Luffy has been accepted into Ace and Sabo's crew, even though he's the youngest, and even though he's a crybaby, he is one of them, and they take on the world together, and they pursue their dream to be pirates together, and I love it. They go into this town together. Sabo gets called on by a noble. This is where we know that Sabo ran away from a noble home. And then we get that really cute letter in that same page that Luffy left behind, I owe you treasure, because they stole the food. I love that kid. The boys force Sabo's secret out of him, only to hit him with a so, which I love them as kids. I love them as kids so much. And then the boys do the brother ritual, which we caught a glimpse of in the last arc, but we didn't realize that there were 3 cups. Now we know there are 3. Sabo is also a brother of Luffy. And I will admit this was a little bit harder for me to accept. I already knew Ace as Luffy's brother when it was revealed that Ace is more like an adoptive brother to Luffy, which almost made me love him more. But then we kind of, on the tail end of Ace's death, we kind of get Sabo thrown in there too as, well, actually there's another one. There's another one. And I don't know how I feel about that just yet. I like Sabo's character. I think that he's an interesting character. I think that he's well used, but I don't know how I feel. He definitely doesn't feel like a brother to me. He feels like a great friend to these 2 brothers, but he is harder for me to accept as a brother, which really isn't fair because it's not my story. They can do what they want. They can have another brother, but, and they have this bond, so it makes sense. But for me, as the reader, it is harder for me to accept this one. Anyway, Sabo gets pulled away from them and forced back home, where we see them trying to get Sabo to pin everything on Luffy and Ace so that he can be free of any consequences, and he refuses. We see that this family, in Sabo's absence, has adopted a new child, and he's kind of like the replacement of Sabo. If Sabo ends up disappointing, they're just gonna shoo him away and use this other kid. And Oda did a great job of really establishing that we're supposed to hate this kid with the way he drew him. So Sabo's family decides to burn the trash mountain. They don't want this eyesore in their town anymore, and they don't want the people that they have determined an eyesore as well. They've determined are useless and less than human. So they're just gonna burn it all, including the people, including the children. And when the children try to get away, they just go ahead and tie them down so that they will burn with the trash mountain. Holy cow! Dragon shows up, has a nice little chat with Sabo, and then saves everybody from Trash Mountain. And not only Dragon, but we see Papa and Iva there with him. Papa confirmed a part of the Revolutionary Soldiers. I mean, we already knew it, because Iva was like, you were an old friend, you were part of us. And we already knew it. It was already confirmed. But here he is! We see him with them. This builds so many more theories around Papa. I'm so excited. Oh, Dragon also says that he used to be a part of this town. Was Dragon once a noble too? Was he part of a noble family too? Does he have a really similar story to Sabo, where he was once the child of nobles, hated this whole system, and that's why he's a part of the Revolutionary Soldiers Army? That's why he's the leader of this thing, fighting against the Celestial Dragons, the world government, and all these authority heads that misuse and abuse their power and that treat people terribly. Is this why he fights so hard and so directly against them? Because he came from them, just like Sabo? Anyway, Sabo's totally a part of this revolutionary army and army? He's totally a part of this group. He's underneath Dragon, and we're gonna see him in a present timeline in Dragons. I mean, we're not even in the theories part of this video, but I feel really confident that that's what this is all foreshadowing. Why are the people, this whole panel, why are the people in the trash mountain not human? Why are they being burned? Think about it. It's their fault for not being born aristocrats. You're right. They should have been born aristocrats. They're so stupid. Man, Oda, you do a really good job of making us deeply, deeply hate any noble we encounter. Except for Sabo, but it's not his fault, he's a noble. So anyway, back to Ace and Luffy. They've been tied up. The place is burning. They got free. The people who the nobles sent, the pirates that the nobles sent to set this fire, they've decided to close them up. They're just gonna let them burn too. Swell nobles. So now these pirates are like, we're all gonna die, but we would like your treasure, please. So Ace agrees to do it, and Luffy is appalled, but Ace says, your life, our lives, are more important than this. I have so many thoughts around this. Ace, once again, always putting Luffy's life first because Luffy is the first person. I mean, technically Sabo was the first person to embrace him wholly, but Luffy was the first person that we saw anyway that confirmed to Ace that his life was important. And so now Ace's life is targeted toward protecting Luffy. I love him. And maybe I'm reading too much into things, but not only does he initially say your life is more important than this because protecting Luffy is his #1 goal now, but also, or at least one of his #1 goals, but also he then replaces it with our lives, which could just be him covering up and like trying to look different in front of Luffy. But I think it's also him inserting a little bit of value onto himself now that finally someone has told him he's valuable. Ace uses his Haki. They cannot be convinced that Sabo has properly left them or abandoned them or doesn't love them anymore, which I love. Luffy is forced away while Ace, once again, refuses to run and stands down this pirate guy. And Our Lady, Dadan, comes in and stands next to him and says, all right, I'll fight alongside you. Oh, you know, I really didn't expect to like her this much. When we're introduced to her, and she, much like Garp, is abusive and hard and not a good parental figure to these kids. And I know everybody's trying their best, but child abuse is a real hard thing for me to just get over. And these people, Garp and Dadan, they're too physically hard on these children. I mean, and mentally and verbally, it's rough. I know they're doing their best, but it's also hard for me, a mom, to watch children go through this stuff. So I'm introduced to her, and I instantly am like, oh, not gonna like you. I know that this position, this motherly sort of role has been forced on you. You didn't choose to raise these kids, so I can give you a little bit of slack, but you still hit them, so I still don't like you that much. But I think I do really love her because not only does she stand next to Ace and fight in this situation where she could be, you dumb kid, don't face down this pirate, run. She doesn't. She says, okay, I'll fight next to you. And then she really does show how much she loves them when she cries when they thank her. When she sees them off, well, sees Ace off, can't see Luffy off, but when she sees them off, when they leave, and when she attacks Garp. That was a great scene too. We'll get to it. I'm getting really out of order, but I have fallen for this character that I didn't think I would. Also, this is the point where Dragon saves all the people. I'm quite out of order. I'm just too excited to talk about some of this stuff. Anyway, we get this moment where Ace explains that he couldn't back down against the pirate because Luffy was behind him. As well as this moment where Garp explains that Roger was the same way. Ace's dad was the same way. He refused to back down from a fight, from somebody who was challenging him. And it wasn't entirely because of pride, but it was because he was trying to protect his friends. And Ace is the same way. Luffy is the same way. They are always after protecting the people that matter to them. And this is just one of the most noble traits one of my favorite character types to read is someone with this intense burning loyalty, the self-sacrificial loyalty, and I get it from both of these characters and I just eat it up. Sabo isn't supposed to take off to be a pirate until he's 17, but he can't take this noble life, so he decides to set sail a little bit early. This is where we get a fake out death from him, where his ship is exploded and we expect that he's gonna die. I mean, it's possible that it's a real death. I don't think so. We get a lot of fake out deaths in this series, so naturally I'm suspicious of any death, and I don't really think it would work for him to die at this point. I'm already kind of on the fence about calling him a brother anyway because of the way he's been introduced. After the fact, in the wake of my mourning, one of the brothers were just like, by the way, there's another one, which is really hard for me to accept and feels a little bit jarring. And then for us to say, by the way, there's another one, but he's dead, I don't think it would work. I don't think it would work. And plus two, everything that Oda does is intentional, and this just feels way too intentional to just be like, we're gonna expose how bad the nobles are, which we've already exposed to you, but we're gonna show you that all nobles are bad, not just the celestial dragons, these guys too. So hate them more. And Saba did a great job of showing that, but if that were his only purpose, it'd be like, we could do it without saying, by the way, there's another brother. And he's dead. And I don't think that that's the only purpose that this character serves, especially since we have that moment where Sabo and Dragon meet and relate and have like a little bonding relation, like I get you moment. And then Dragon goes and saves everybody right before Sabo is also in danger. You know, it feels too much like setup. I can't believe that this is Sabo's end. If it is, I will not like this flashback nearly as much, and I won't like the use of this character. I don't know, maybe people will disagree with me. Maybe I have a really unpopular opinion right here, but I don't think so. Sabo sends a letter to his brothers before he sets sail, and it was very sweet. It was very heartwarming. I'll see you again. I'm looking forward to you. Luffy may be a crybaby, but make sure to look out for him, which is hilarious. I love that. Which, you know, I guess should be very sad to us because he sent this letter off saying, I'll see you again someday when we're all pirates, and then we're supposed to think that he's dead. But I mean, I don't think he's dead, so it's actually just sweet. And I expect that we're going to see him, you know, very soon in our present timeline. At first, when I met him, I assumed we were going to see him in our present timeline as a stuck-up noble, having been the product of what he was. But then we met Dragon, and yeah, I think he's going to be a part of Dragon's crew. That's my guess. My guess is also that when we got the fake out death, you know, Dragon saved him at that point. We get this scene. Ace, I want to be stronger. Lots stronger. So there won't be anything I can't protect. And nobody will ever have to go away again. So please don't die, Ace. Oh, man. So this is the scene that Luffy was referencing when he was mad at his brother for dying, and he said, you promised me you would never die, which is such an irrational thing to be mad at somebody over because it's such an unrealistic promise, but it was a beautiful, beautiful scene. And grief isn't realistic. So this is that scene. This is what Luffy was referencing, and I'm so glad that we actually got that. I didn't realize I needed it, but I'm so glad that we got it, as well as showing Luffy saying, I want to get so strong so that I can always protect people. And that has been Luffy. That has been so consistent in him all throughout this thing, protecting people from pain, from the possibility of death, but even more so from the possibility of emotional pain, has been why he's gotten stronger, what he's fought for so much of the series, as well as for pursuing his dreams. But he says these things to Ace right after not right after, but we see this flashback right after we watched him fail in protecting his brother because he wasn't strong enough yet. And Oda, that was a sucker punch, and I do not appreciate it. I don't mean that. It was beautifully written. We also get this speech from Ace. I don't know what killed Sabo, but whatever it was definitely the opposite of freedom. Sabo died without being able to grasp freedom. A theme all throughout the series is Luffy fighting for freedom, fighting for his own freedom, fighting for his crew's freedom, and even just randos that he meets along the way. When freedom is being snatched, he tends to be there to press pause on his own dreams, put himself in danger so that he can fight for people's freedom. And getting that little glimpse, there's so many little moments like this all throughout this little short arc. It's really not that short. All throughout this arc, we get glimpses of just like little moments that's like, ah, that is where Luffy got that moral. That is where Luffy got that ideal that he fights for, that he believes in. I love it. Man, I love it. So they train up. I love seeing that Luffy's gum powers, his rubber abilities, are next to useless when he gets them. It's like this is a silly, useless nonsense ability that should harm him more than help him. But because of Luffy and Ace's determination to get stronger, to train up, because of how hard they worked together, Luffy is determined to prove that ability wrong and to make it powerful. Luffy says, if I'm creative enough, I just have to come up with creative ways to make this a powerful thing, and I will. And I love seeing that. I love seeing Luffy starting out very weak because of this devil fruit power. It did not make him stronger. It hurt him. This power made him weaker. It's a silly nonsense ability. But because of Luffy's determination, because of his drive, because of his training, and because of his creativity, he found ways to make it something really formidable. And I love that little perspective on him. This flashback was jam-packed, full of perspective that only enhanced Luffy's character and the story as a whole, and I adore it. We also saw them speaking to Sabo, who wasn't there. Ouch. We see the trio become a duo. They fight off a bear and strike their brother pose, which I love. Ace turned 17 and he left. Luffy turned 17 and he left. And the flashback ends on Luffy setting sail, ready to finally explore his dreams and how excited he is, and shouts to the world, "I'm going to be the Pirate King!" And immediately thereafter, we see Luffy in the present timeline, injured and broken, and saying, "The Pirate King? I'm far too weak." That one hurt. Anyway, we're back in the present timeline. So much is happening, further showing the world in chaos, and so much movement in the world in a very short period of time. We have the fact that Whitebeard and Ace's bodies were handed over to Shanks, and Shanks created a memorial for them, which was such a beautiful and devastating panel. We see Paw Paw show up. So, the dragon called all of his revolutionary army together. He said, "It's time for us to meet and collect again." And Paw Paw shows up. And our chick, the bartender lady, Skeeks? I don't remember her name. The bartender lady, married to Dragon, she sees Paw Paw and she's like, "It's fine. You're with us, right?" Theories around that. I'll get to them. The Marines are also in shambles. Garp resigns, Buddha resigns, and I think it was Garp that said, "I'd like for Sleepy Ice Navy guy to be the next admiral, to take one of our positions." So first of all, Nana Boo Boo, Lava Guy, Ice Guy got a promotion before you. But second of all, theories around that. I've already been kind of on the fence about Ice Guy because he's such a complex character. He was such good friends with Saul, but he still executed him because those were his orders. He's protected Robin and repeatedly changed what he's doing with Robin based off of what she seems to want. We talked about that in a previous video, the fact that he was trying to protect her, and then once he realized that she wanted to die, he tried to help her get to her execution, and then once he realized that she didn't want to die anymore, then he was like, "Okay, I'm back to protecting you or letting you go free. I'm not going to try to capture you." And other little minor things, the fact that he knows Paw Paw. I mean, there's a lot of things. There's a lot stirring there. But the fact that Garp, who is so conflicted and who is also a crazy complex character that just, I'm still trying to wrap my brain around all that's going on inside of Garp. Garp has now resigned and wants Sleepy Navy Guy to take his place. I don't know. Maybe because he knows that Sleepy Navy Guy isn't just gonna always perfectly do what the Marines want. And he might not actually go after the boys as hard as someone else might, like Lava Guy. Because Lava Guy freaking killed Ace! Anyway, the Marines is in shambles. With this new era ending, so is so much of what the military is. And we also get flashes of all of the supernovas. Not all of them. Some of them. We get flashes of a lot of these characters that we met and that are so cool, and how they're responding, how they're moving forward, probably all in search of the One Piece. And some of them are taking over areas and doing quite well, and some are not. My favorite little flash that we got of these guys was of the Glutton Girl. She got captured by Blackbeard, and I loved that scene where Blackbeard was being a creep and she kicked him in the face. I hope she's okay. I liked that scene a lot. Oh no, I forgot to come back around to this scene with Garp and Dadan. So after Ace and Luffy leave, Garp does come back, and Dan attacks him, and she admonishes him. You've always put your job before the boys, and she has become so protective over them. She loves them so much, and she is hard on Garp for not giving them that same care. And people are kind of like responding, trying to get her off of him because he's like the Navy hero. He's a really important guy, and she's just beating on him. And he tells them, no, it's okay. And he takes the abuse. He takes the hits, even though he obviously could overpower her easily. He takes the verbal abuse. He lets her get it all out. And then they chat. And I don't know. I still have mixed feelings about Garp's character. You know, it's hard for me to see someone take on kids and do it poorly. But he's such a complex character. And I'm fascinated by him. I enjoy every scene he's in. He clearly has so much going on beneath the surface. And I love the complexity of his character. Oh, I also forgot to mention, as I was mentioning how like the world is in chaos and everything, when Shanks took the bodies and created a memorial for them, he also in his mind is speaking to Luffy and telling him it's okay to cry. What was the line? You grow up and become a man by experiencing victory and defeat, by doing difficult things and shedding tears. It's all right to cry. Just overcome it. I love that in contrast to the entire flashback where the boys were repeatedly telling Luffy to quit being a crybaby and to stop crying, and someone who's strong and someone who's a man doesn't cry. And then Shanks, another one of the people that deeply influenced so much of who Luffy is today, is giving him the exact opposite advice. And Luffy didn't hear this advice, but this is clearly the direction that Luffy went. And all of this, we get this line from Shanks right before we're thrown back into Luffy still recovering and fully letting his emotions out. So anyway, we're back to Luffy and Jinbe. And Jinbe is talking Luffy through, no, this wasn't a dream. Yes, this was real. Yes, Ace is really dead. No, you can't give up. He's standing there, facing off against Luffy, doing his best to be an emotional support. And then when Luffy's crying and his pain turns to rage, Jinbe says, hit me. Go for it. I'm injured, but I'll take it. Hit me. He lets Luffy let out his aggression and his anger, and then Jinbe just takes him down and then sits down next to him and reminds him, let me read the exact line. It may be painful for you now, Luffy, but fight it. Don't dwell on what you've lost. What's gone is gone forever. Try to remember what you still have. And letting Luffy rage and scream and cry and just letting him feel, followed by taking him down a notch. And then when it was all out, Luffy was able to hear Jinbe and then remember, I have a crew. And that shifted something in him. And man, the flashback for me was the best part of this arc, but Jinbe was the star. We also got this amazing panel of Ace once again when he was in his jail cell with Jinbe, showing his love for his brother. And we got this scene of Ace finally beginning to heal, shouting that he wants to see his crew. Enter Rayleigh, the Dark King, who swam through the calm belt. His ship went down somewhere, I don't know where, and he just swam through the calm belt and then came up smiling. Rayleigh, sir, what powers do you hold? I mean, it's now confirmed that you definitely are not a devil fruit user, but my golly, sir. So when he wakes up and when he is recovering, Boa immediately wants to feed Luffy, displaying how true her love and understanding of this man is, that she instantly is like, you're awake? Food! That shows an understanding. I don't ship them, by the way, but I do think that their dynamics are really funny. I also love Jinbe, once again, hyping up his boy, eating and saying, come on, Luffy, we need to feed our lives, or something like that. Food is nourishment of life, I don't remember. But Jinbe is hyping up his boy, encouraging him to eat. Jinbe is the best! I love him so much. Okay, so I haven't really mentioned the crew at all because genuinely I don't remember where they come in this whole arc. I can't, as I was collecting screenshots and stuff that I had taken while reading, I couldn't remember at what point we saw the crew in their different islands. So I'm just going to talk about them here. So we see a little bit further into the crew on their different islands. We see that Robin was working for building a bridge, I think, for the Celestial Toe Jams. And then Dragon's people saved her, and now she's with Dragon Luffy's dad, not the Celestial Toe Jams. She's with Dragon's people, and that's awesome. We also have, let's see, who else was connected to things? Sanji was on Iva's island. Didn't realize that was Iva's island before. And Zoro, who he and Ghost Girl landed on Hawkeye's castle, manor, thing. Poor guy comes back from war and 2 teenagers have taken over his castle. I love it. We see pretty much they're all at this point now, which it's been, days since we last saw them, they're all starting to acclimate to these islands, which we've seen that in the cover stories as well. But they're starting to acclimate to their islands. They are no longer being attacked by everything around them. And they're ready to go off to Sabo to find their boy and to reunite. And they're all, I really enjoyed, actually I say they're all acclimated. I do really want to highlight this panel with Frankie because that was just, oh Frankie. Oh, Frankie. But anyway, they're all ready to go off to get their boy and to reunite, and then suddenly everybody changes their mind. Why? Why? They suddenly all change their mind, and they stop, and they turn back around, and they come back to their island. Why? This bothered me so much. But then, of course, we find out that it's because Luffy did all these things. He went back to visit the death site of his brother so that he could cause chaos, which essentially I think translates to the Marines now think that Luffy has declared war on them, but he creates all this chaos so that he can get into the paper to show off his tattoo that had 3 days crossed out, replaced by 2 years, which is just so smart. That's brilliant. And they all saw it in the papers as they were on their way to him, turned back around, and I have a lot to say about this, actually. I love this crew's dedication to Luffy, that they see this cryptic message And without thought, without hesitation, they're like, see you in 2 years. They turn back around, they're going to spend more time on their islands, and they're going to train to get stronger so that they can stand by their boy a little bit more, a little bit better. I love the unquestioning dedication, the unquestioning belief that he knows more than them and that he has a good plan, even though he's proven over and over again that he's not a great strategizer and that he's impulsive and makes dumb decisions. They have so much faith in him that they're like, okay, 2 years it is. And I'm back to thinking that that there's a lot more to Pawpaw, and that he did Pawpaw them away to specific islands intentionally because he was trying to help them, because now that they're acclimated to their places and they're not just trying to be killed around the corner, Nami is going to be able to study weather, Chopper is going to be able to study herbs and such, Sanji is going to learn recipes that help people fight better, I think. All of them, they're all in the perfect locations for them to be able to train harder. I think the funniest one was Nami when she comes back and she's like, she pretends to cry, they feel bad, and she goes, that's okay, I forgive you, you can call me Miss Nami, I'll be staying here for a while. I loved that one. But I think that the one that I appreciated the most was Zoro, because he's in his rival's domain. He's with the man that he's sworn to eventually become better than and to defeat one day. And instead he bows before him and humbles himself and begs to be trained by him, that's a big move for Zoro. That's a big move, but he does it without question because he just wants to do everything he can to be stronger for his own sake, but also for Luffy's. I also really loved that we got each crew member having a flashback, remembering the moment when Luffy called them, when Luffy invited them to be a part of his crew, as they're recalling how much they want to dedicate themselves to be stronger to help him. And I think the one that hit me the hardest was Brooks. Brooks says, he's in this cage, all these people are afraid of him, and he says, but you weren't afraid of me. You even asked me to join you. And then it shows the flashback, never mind all that. Do you want to join my crew? I'd love to. He says, do you have any idea how much joy you brought me, especially after wandering like that in the dark sea for 50 years? You seemed so bright in my eyes, those 50 years I spent doing nothing but hoping. That moment made up for it all. Oh, that one hit hard. So I enjoyed all these moments with these with our crew. I would say I do have one kind of nitpick, something that kind of annoyed me, was how repetitive it was. And I understand that we wanted to see each of them, but as much as I loved them having these flashbacks of seeing when Luffy called them and seeing them all ready up and go to get him, and then changing their minds as soon as they see the tattoo and turning back, and then each of them saying, okay, I'm going to stay here longer so that I can fight for my captain because I'm loyal to my captain. I mean, it did get pretty repetitive. As much as I loved what we did, seeing each of them individually do each of these things, by the time I watched every single one of their flashbacks of when Luffy called them, and by the time I saw each of them say, he's my captain, I love him for this reason, I will fight for him, I will get stronger for him, and it just, for every single stage that we got of this crew, we watched them all go through it. We watched them all do the exact same thing, say essentially the exact same thing as they decided to go off, as they decided to come back, and it got repetitive. I could have seen it happen at least maybe a little bit differently, or maybe a little bit faster, or maybe I don't know. By the time we got down the line for each of these steps, I was like, I get it. Anyway, we're back to Luffy on the island. Rayleigh is going to train Luffy. He tells Boa, you can't bring him any more food. You can't pamper him. He's got to figure this out on his own. He needs to train. So Boa doesn't appreciate it, but she accepts and she's like, I'll wait for you. And Luffy goes off into the forest and says, I smell adventure. And I love that moment for him. I love seeing how much he's changed now that he's been able to feel, he's been able to process and to get his emotions out, and he's been able to be reminded of what's still waiting for him and what he still has left in life. And now he's back to our Luffy. I smell adventure. I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to go. I really loved finally learning more about Haki. I still feel like there's a lot that I have left to understand, but I finally have some ground laying stuff. I love the 3 different types of Haki that we learn about, that we've seen them all happen in the story already. And as Rayleigh is explaining it to Luffy, we get flashes of where we saw this used on or around Luffy. I finally understand why the Boa sisters, as well as why Garp, were able to hurt Luffy even though he was rubber. I love it. We also learn that Luffy is able to hit people in their fluid state now, which is a big game changer in the power dynamics. Anyway, this arc ends with Luffy hanging his hat on a rock and saying, it's time for me to put away being a pirate for a little while so that I can learn this. So he puts his hat away, he puts the card away, and he rushes into the forest to start training. And it was such a great ending. This was such a great ending to this saga. From being able to see Luffy in this desperate, painful state to going through that with him and watching him start to turn around and start to gain his hope back. It was so well done because it didn't feel like he just was over it. We got to grieve with him, we got to feel with him, we got to hurt with him, but then we also got to remember with him that there's still a lot out there for us. And we got to see him turn around back into hope, which is a great way to end this saga because it left us feeling hopeful as well. I think the flashback, like I've already said several times, added so much understanding for us, the readers, to Luffy's character, as well as added understanding. It recontextualized so much from the beginning of this story and so much of Luffy's intentions, and I appreciate that so much. I am a little bit nervous about Sabo. I don't think he's dead. Obviously, I've made that very clear. I do think that was a fake out death. I do think that we're going to see him in a present timeline, and I think that he's going to be with Dragon's crew. Maybe he'll be a noble. I really, really doubt it. But I do think that we are going to see Sabo again, and that I don't know, I'm nervous about it. I do like Sabo's character a lot. You know, he fits with the themes of this story, fighting against nobility, fighting against the powers that be, that are harming people that are detached from humanity, as well as fighting for your own freedom and for your own dreams, carving your own future despite the obstacles ahead of you. He fits the themes of this story so well. But his placement in the story directly after Ace's death, I'm not fully sold on. I like his character, but I'm not fully sold on how he's been integrated. And now that I believe that he's going to show up in a future, you know, in this present timeline, and it's going to be like, surprise, Luffy, I'm actually alive. I mean, I don't think it's going to go down like that, but you know, we're going to see him. And I am nervous that his character type is potentially, the purpose of him is going to be to try to fill the gap of Ace. That now Luffy is going to be like, my other brother, good, you're not dead. And then they're going to be brothers. And like, he's supposed to be like the new Ace, filling the hole that Ace left. And I don't want that. I hope he serves a better purpose than that. I'm not going to say that I won't like it because I do trust Oda's writing ability, but I really don't want him to serve that purpose for Luffy. I really, really, really don't want him to serve that purpose for Luffy. I loved seeing our crew some more, a little bit more closely, and you know, we have the promise that they're coming back and that Luffy and they are going to be reunited soon. Assumedly, I'm assuming that it's going to be directly after we come back into the next arc, which I'm thrilled by. I am gonna be a little bit of a hypocrite. I've been whining and complaining, especially in Impel Down and Amazon Lily, that I miss them and I want them back, and here I am, gonna be a little inconsistent. I'm thrilled that they're coming back. I miss them, I love them, but I'm very attached to the different people that we've collected along the way while we've been missing them. I love Jinbe so much, and Jinbe did say that he'll be waiting for Luffy in Fishman Island, so I know that we're getting more of Jinbe. But I love Jinbe, I love Buggy, I love Croc. Boa has been so much fun. I love Whitebeard and Ace, but you know, I've accepted that we're not getting more of them. But there's so many people that we've collected in the absence of our crew. I'm thrilled to have our crew back, but I really like these new dynamics too, and I'm nervous. I want to keep seeing these characters that I've become so attached to. Okay, finally, I'm gonna end it on a few thoughts on Pawpaw. I mean, I basically already said them. I do think that I have settled on Pawpaw was definitely helping the crew. I mean, each island that they went on happened to be perfect for them to understand things a lot more and to be able to grow and become stronger in their very specific niche abilities. So I mean, I do think that Pawpaw was very intentional about where he sent each of them, which is awesome, and I love it. He does seem to still have some agency to him, because when Dragon called all of the revolutionary soldiers together, he showed up. So he does still seem to have some agency. He does still seem to have some willpower. To what extent, I don't know. What purpose is he going to serve at this point? I don't know. They said that he was dead and that he's been replaced, and now that he's basically just a killing machine for the world government and for the Marines. So I don't know. I don't know. But I do want to trust him still. Even as he arrived and she said, "I can trust you, right?" And he said, "Beep." I still want to trust him. And then also Buggy. I do find it interesting that as we're going through and seeing everybody gain their information from newspapers, Buggy was the only one that gained information from the government. And he did get that letter from the government directly after the government executed Moria, and now they need to find a replacement for a warlord. I'm just saying, if Buggy failed his way up all the way into a warlord position or something in that realm, something in this area, I mean, technically there are also some admiral and vice admiral positions that need to be filled as well, but I really doubt that that's what the government was contacting Buggy about. If Buggy's about to be a warlord, I'm just gonna hang my tinfoil hat and pledge my allegiance to the Red Nose Pirates. I will steal a naval uniform and exit out, and I will just be one of his loyal followers, because that man is going places. Anyway, this was, naturally, far longer than I ever thought that it would be, but those are my thoughts on the post-war saga. Nope, arc. This saga was brilliant. I think that this is the most brilliantly executed saga in the series so far. I still think I prefer Water 7 over this one, but I mean, they're basically tied. I have adored every step of this series for a while now. So what are my plans from here? So I have mentioned in several videos before that I plan on doing a reread. This is where it starts. My plan is to take a break. I know it probably seems a little bit silly, but this saga was so intense, so beautiful and painful, and really took a lot out of me in the best way possible. that I don't really want to just dive into more One Piece. I don't want to just throw myself into more content just yet. I kind of just want to sit with it for a while. I want to breathe for a minute. So I'm going to take a week off, not from One Piece content for you, just for me. So I'm not going to read anything for a week. Next Friday is still One Piece Friday. I'm finally going to do the top 10 One Piece moments so far video that I've talked about in the last couple of videos. That'll be next Friday. And then after I take a week to just breathe for a minute and process and let all these emotions and everything settle, then I will dive into my reread. So I'm going to be rereading from the beginning all the way through Skypiea. The reason is because I started One Piece. I launched myself into this series knowing nothing about it. All I knew was that I had one commenter that was very persistent that really wanted me to start One Piece, and the persistence convinced me. So I picked up the first 3 volumes on a whim. I started reading it, I posted about it on Instagram, and I got several comments saying you really need to read the first 12 volumes. So I bought the next 9. I read through 12 volumes, I reviewed them. I went into this story not knowing what genre it was, not knowing that it was absurdist, not knowing that it was an epic. I went into it completely knowing nothing. I didn't even know how long it was. I had no idea that this series was as long as it was. I didn't even look up that it was unfinished or that there were 1,000 chapters already published. I knew nothing about this series going into it. I went in completely blind. So I read this story and made up my own perceptions based off of what the story was showing me. So eventually I figured out that it was absurdist, and to me, in the beginning, it felt like just a fun, serialized adventure. It felt like we were just having a nice, light time going on adventures with this silly, foolhardy, but really loyal crew. And it seemed to me, the way I was reading the story at first was that it was serialized, it was a fun adventure, it was not going to all be connected. So I read these little random adventures as random adventures and not as things that I needed to hold in my brain because they would all come back around. And it wasn't until the end of Skypiea that I really realized what this series was, that I realized how connected it was, how intentional it was, and how vast and epic it was. And Water 7 was when I started really reading this story with the intentionality that I'm reading it now. So I want to go back and I want to reread from the beginning through Skypiea to recontextualize, to reread, to absorb all the little details and to see the story from the perspective that I'm reading it in now. And as I'm doing this reread, I'm going to be going through and kind of reacting to my old reviews. So after I finish the first saga, I'll rewatch my first review with you guys and kind of chat and react. And as well as after I'm done with that reaction, at the end of the video, I will give you some of my new thoughts, stuff that I've discovered the second time around, stuff that I've realized. So I'll have, for the first, I think it's just 3 sagas. East Blue, Alabasta, and Skypiea, I'm pretty sure. So for those 3 sagas, once a week, I'll bring you a reaction to my first reviews of them, as well as a discussion on the new things that I've found and discovered. And then after I'm done with my reread, I'll probably take another week off, and then I'll dive back into where I am now, reading new arcs. So I'll be picking back up at chapter, I think it was 598 is where I left off, and continuing until I'm caught up and I'm weekly with you guys. So I hope that you will stick with me. I know I've gotten past like the big moment of the series that a lot of people were excited for me to get to. I hope you'll stick with me because I'm not just in love with this series, I am obsessed with it, and I'm so excited to keep reading it and continue discussing it with you guys. So that's my plans moving forward. Even on the weeks where I'm taking off reading because I just want to sit for a second and process, there will still be One Piece Fridays. There will still be One Piece content. I actually have a whole long list of filler videos that I'm really excited to do with you guys. So I'm in it for the long haul, that is for sure. I am deeply in love with this series. I went in having no idea what I was getting into. I definitely didn't expect to fall for it the way I have, but I have, and it has been a blast. Anyway, Be sure to chat with me more about any of this stuff in the comments. I post videos every Tuesday through Friday. I'll see you on my next One Piece Friday.